just had a very interesting conversation with author Jackie Pamose on the role of influencers in 2019. I mean, she wrote a book on the power of social media and how for some can be a way of making a living. Now, influencer marketing is a form of marketing in which focus is placed on influential people rather than the target market itself as a whole on social media. Now, the most powerful influencer of beliefs is direct experience, a person who has the power to influence many people as through social media or traditional media. Now, this morning we look into the lives of influencers, and we're joined by one of them, Themba Gwej. Themba, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, some people. Thank you so much for having me here.
What defines an influencer really?
I would say, personally, it has to be somebody who has not necessarily a big following, but somebody who's able, through their content, to really get people to take some form of action. Mm-hmm. So be it selling a product, be it getting people to actually change, some kind of thinking, but you really have to be putting out content that gets people to really think and actually take some sort of action.
When you speak of following, I mean, how many followers does one need to have in order to be categorized as an influencer?
Yeah. Well, again, in modern sort of thinking, there are various sort of types of influencers. So you'll find your mega influencers, people with a lot of followers, think large numbers in the millions, like your Bonangs. They come with a huge following, and you can sort of put them into that category. Then you get the guys who are sitting somewhere in the middle, who have, yes, thousands and thousands of followers, but not as big as your mega influencers. Mm-hmm. And then you get the sort of micro or nano influencers, which is the guys with very little followers but quite impactful in the sense that whoever is following them is quite active. So yeah, so generally there are different types, and it really depends on what each individual is seeking to achieve with their power, so to speak.
How then do you find influencers in your niche?
I particularly am in the sort of food space. What I do is I do quite a lot of cooking and baking, and I actually post quite a lot of that content. So what I'm finding in the space that I'm working in is that it's really not a numbers game, but rather a question of the kind of content that we put out. And the brands that we are aligning with, again, are brands that are sort of looking for people who are providing very authentic content, as opposed to looking for people with a lot of followers, because then, that's another debate altogether.
Yeah, and the whole job relies on just how engaged your followers are and how much reach they receive. Why is this important for brands?
It's important in the sense that previously brands spent a lot of money on advertising, which was sort of casting your net wide and hoping for the best. With the sort of advent of influencer marketing, you are a lot more closer to getting the right kind of customer to take notice of your content, because one, you already know that they're following somebody who posts such content, therefore they are interested. And then secondly, you can sort of see the result, because now a lot of the platforms are actually giving insights. So from your statistics, you can tell how many people viewed your content, how many people actually took action based on that. Did they click on a link? Did they go on to maybe try the product? So there's a lot more value that they're getting out of influencer marketing than previously, when they couldn't really measure the impact of the sort of broader old methods. Yeah. And
having said that, Themba, I mean, working with different influencers on a certain brand, I mean, it's great for generating interest and for raising brand awareness. So how then do you ensure that they become long-term brand advocates without actually moving to the next brand?
So that's actually quite an interesting dynamic that I'm observing personally, and I'm trained in marketing, so I actually worked for a number of years in that field before I even got into working for myself. Yeah. So when I look at it with a very different eye, in the sense that I've been brand manager, I've been head of marketing before, and I'm looking at it saying, well, is what we're doing as South African marketers right now, and people who are called influencers, actually sustainable? Are we actually getting the value that we should be getting? And I'm sort of in two minds about that. One, I see a lot of brands using influencers for very quick, short-term kind of campaigns. The thinking is about trending. It's about, well, if I can get that person to speak for my brand, I'll trend for the day, as opposed to actually using it for more long-term and actually saying, well, I'm building a relationship with them and their audience, and hopefully in the long term they'll become more loyal sort of users of my product or service.
Influencers are the kings and the queens of content creation. So how do you differentiate yourself from the rest?
For me, it's got to be about whether I can use the product if I like the brand, and if the people who actually follow my content are actually going to believe that I actually use it. So let's take an example. If we took a Bonang as an example, and we gave her a small little vehicle, and we said she must influence so that everyone is going to know that there's no way she's driving such a vehicle, considering the life that she portrays. Right. So it's exactly the same thing, whether you are big or small in the influencer space. Your followers have to really believe that you actually are enjoying the product, that you actually would be using it. So I tend to stay away from product that I know that I wouldn't be using. So if you come to me and you say, well, can we work together on a campaign? First of all, would I use your product?
This is one of the most important conversations that we should be having in this day and age, but unfortunately time is not on our side. But thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate it. Well, the social media influencer has access to a large audience and can persuade others by virtue of their authenticity and reach. I mean, we just spoke to Themba Gwej on the role of influencers in 2019. Let's take a coffee break. We'll be right back.